Welcome to the Senior Techie podcast. Right now, as you are listening to this, there are actually nearly 89,000 people in America who are over 100 years old.
Which is just an incredible number when you really stop to think about it.
It really is. I mean, just think about that for a second. We are talking about tens of thousands of individuals who watched the horse-drawn carriage get replaced by the Model T automobile.
Oh, absolutely. And they probably gathered around the very first commercial radio broadcasts, too.
Exactly. And those same people are now today actively navigating touchscreens and algorithms and video calls.
Yeah, it's a massive amount of change to adapt to.
So if you ever feel a little apprehensive about technology, if you ever worry that the digital world is moving too fast and maybe leaving you behind, I really want you to remember the sheer scope of adaptation your generation has already mastered.
That is such a good point. You've already adapted to so much.
You really have. You are deeply capable of this. Technology is really just a tool, and we are here to help you command it step by step without the overwhelm.
That context is incredibly important, I think, because people often treat technology as something that belongs exclusively to the young.
Right, which just isn't true.
Not at all. The tools only matter when they are applying to real lived experience. And right now, there is this massive cultural moment happening that makes mastering these tools incredibly relevant.
You're talking about May, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
May 2026 is National Older Americans Month. And this is actually a tradition that goes all the way back to 1963, originally established by President Kennedy.
And the national theme for this year is just brilliant. It's Champion Your Health.
I love that theme.
Me too.
Yeah.
It focuses entirely on prevention, wellness, and self-advocacy. It's really about taking the reins for yourself.
It definitely is.
So today we are going to explore the shifting realities of aging in America and uncover the rather fascinating and honestly mostly invisible system that keeps local communities running.
And we'll show you exactly how you can use everyday technology to participate in this month's celebrations too.
Right. But before we get to the celebrations, I have to ask you, who exactly are we celebrating? Because the sheer numbers have to be shifting our national infrastructure.
Yeah, shifting might actually be an understatement. Upending is probably closer to the truth.
Wow, really? Upending?
Oh, definitely. If we look at the profile of older Americans, which is this extensive data set compiled by the Administration for Community Living, the demographic landscape is almost unrecognizable compared to a few decades ago.
How so? Give me some numbers.
Well, in 2022, there were 57.8 million people over the age of 65 in the U.S.
Wait, 57.8 million?
Yeah. That means more than 1 in 6 Americans falls into this demographic right now.
1 in 6. I mean, I knew the baby boomer generation was aging, but that volume seems staggering.
It is massive.
Is our society's infrastructure, like our housing, our healthcare, our local economies, is it even equipped to handle that kind of volume?
Honestly, it's struggling to catch up. And that pressure is only going to increase.
Because the numbers keep growing, right?
Exactly. By 2040, that demographic is projected to hit 22% of the entire population. But what's truly fascinating isn't just the sheer size of the population, it's what they are doing.
Right, they aren't just sitting around.
No, they aren't retreating from society at all. In 2023, 11.2 million Americans aged 65 and older were in the labor force.
Over 11 million. That completely shatters the old 1950s stereotype of retirement, where you get a gold watch at 65 and move to a golf course.
Yeah, that stereotype is pretty much dead.
But why is that number so high? I mean, is it 11.2 million people starting exciting second careers and consultancies because they just want to? Or is there an underlying economic pressure forcing people to stay clocked in?
It's absolutely a mix of both, and the economic realities are, well, they're pretty complex.
I can imagine.
To understand the financial pressures, you really have to look at how we measure poverty in this country. The official poverty rate for older adults sits at 10.2%.
Okay, so about 10%. On paper, that might sound relatively stable to some people.
Right. But the Census Bureau also relies on something called the Supplemental Poverty Measure, or the SPM.
The SPM, okay.
And when you apply the SPM, the poverty rate for older adults jumps significantly, all the way to 14.1%.
Okay, let's pause and clarify that, because terms like supplemental poverty measure can sound like bureaucratic white noise.
Yeah, it's very jargon heavy.
Let's think about it like your paycheck. The official poverty measure is a bit like your gross pay. It's that big theoretical number at the top of your pay stub before a single tax or fee is taken out.
Right, which always looks perfectly fine on paper.
Exactly. But the supplemental poverty measure, the SPM, that is your net pay. It's what you actually have left in your checking account after the essential, non-negotiable bills are paid.
That is a perfect way to explain it.
Because the SPM factors in the real-world regional cost of living, right?
Exactly. The official poverty measure was developed decades ago, and it largely bases its formula on the cost of food.
Which is pretty outdated.
Very. But the SPM looks at housing, utilities, and crucially for this demographic, out-of-pocket medical expenses.
Medical expenses. That has to be a huge factor.
It's massive. In 2022, older consumers incurred an average of $7,540 in out-of-pocket healthcare costs.
Over $7,000.
Yeah. And that is a 47% jump from just a decade prior.
A 47% increase in just 10 years. That is wild.
It really is.
And I mean, that explains the discrepancy perfectly. If you are on a fixed income and you suddenly have to subtract an additional $7,540 just to cover rising Medicare premiums, prescription drug gaps, and specialized treatments, your net pay just plummets.
Yep, it disappears fast.
You can easily fall below that 14.1% SPM poverty line without your actual income changing a single cent.
Precisely. It paints a much more accurate picture of the day-to-day financial tightrope many people are walking.
It definitely does.
But despite these challenges, it's vital to recognize the sheer vibrancy and presence of this group.
Oh, for sure.
Whether you are living with a spouse, which accounts for about 59% of older adults, or you are navigating life living alone, like 28% do, you are not an isolated statistic.
Not at all. You are part of an economic and cultural force that is actively reshaping the fabric of the country.
Exactly.
Which naturally brings us to a massive logistical question.
Okay, what's that?
If we have 57.8 million people, many of whom are dealing with a 47% spike in healthcare costs, and 28% of whom are living entirely alone, how is the system not totally collapsing?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. Like, who is catching everyone? Because these services, the transportation, the meal deliveries, the community centers, they don't just spring out of the ground by magic.
They certainly don't. The safety net that catches them is driven by what you could call an invisible engine.
An invisible engine. I like that.
Yeah. It's officially known as the Older Americans Act, or the OAA. And to understand how foundational this is, you really have to look at its history.
When did it start?
The OAA was passed in 1965, right alongside Medicare and Medicaid.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was part of that same era.
Yeah. While Medicare handled the medical side, the OAA was created to handle the social and community side of things. Today, it's administered by the Administration on Aging, which sits within the Administration for Community Living.
Okay, so it's essentially the quiet backbone of federal aging policy. I really like the idea of it being an invisible engine because the OAA has absolutely no flashy branding.
No, not at all.
Think of it like the plumbing in your house. You don't ever see the pipes running behind the drywall. You just walk into the kitchen, turn the faucet, and expect clean water to flow.
Right, you never think about the pipes until they break.
Exactly. Most people who receive a hot lunch from Meals on Wheels or take a free falls prevention class at their local community center, they have no idea that the money originated from the federal Older Americans Act. It just quietly works behind the walls.
That's a highly accurate way to look at it, actually.
Yeah.
The federal government allocates the funds, but Washington, D.C. obviously cannot micromanage a meal delivery route in rural Ohio.
Right. That would be a logistical nightmare.
Total nightmare.
Yeah.
So the way that funding gets from the federal pipes to your local faucet is through a massive network of over 600 area agencies on aging. You will frequently hear them referred to as AAAs.
Okay, let's define that one too, because Area Agency on Aging sounds like a dreary government office where you take a number and wait in line for 3 hours.
Yeah, the name doesn't really do them justice.
Not at all. But they are incredibly dynamic. Think of your local AAA as an air traffic controller for senior services.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right, because the air traffic controller doesn't actually fly the planes. They sit in the tower, assess the whole map of the area, and safely direct the flow of traffic to exactly where it needs to go.
Which is exactly what they do.
Your local AAA does the exact same thing with community resources. They assess the local needs, and they direct the flow of grant money, home care services, and transportation safely to the community organizations that serve the people who need them.
They really are the logistical masterminds on the ground. And because they're the crucial link in that chain, it's important to understand the current legislative landscape that funds them.
What's happening there?
Well, right now, the government is looking at the upcoming fiscal year 2026 federal budget. And the administration's current budget request proposes several significant cuts to programs funded by the Older Americans Act.
And just a pause here for you listening. Whatever your politics are, whether you lean left, right, or center, our goal at the Senior Techie is simply to provide you with the facts of the landscape.
Right. We absolutely aren't taking a side or endorsing these budget decisions.
No, not at all. But the reality is that the proposed budget contains tangible changes that organizations on the ground are having to account for right now.
Exactly. For example, the current FY26 request proposes entirely eliminating the Health Promotion and Disease Prevention Program.
Wow.
It also proposes cutting elder rights funding by $5 million and eliminating federal funding for aging and disability resource centers.
That's a lot of changes.
It is. As a factual matter of how the sector is responding, major groups like the National Council on Aging, the NCOA, are using this specific moment to urge citizens to contact their representatives. They are actively advocating for the preservation of the Older Americans Act.
Because, going back to our plumbing analogy, if the water pressure is turned down at the federal reservoir, the local AAAs are air traffic controllers. They have fewer resources to direct to those local faucets.
Precisely. Now, while the OAA funds the physical infrastructure, like the senior centers and the meal deliveries, the concept of community has vastly expanded.
It really has, especially lately.
Yeah, today, community is just as much digital as it is physical. And for National Older Americans Month this May, the Administration for Community Living is heavily encouraging people to participate using digital tools.
And this is exactly where the mission of the Senior Techie comes into play. If the theme is champion your health, engaging socially and intellectually is a huge part of that.
A very huge part.
But the ACL's recommendations often rely on tech jargon that can feel like a barrier to entry. So let's tear down those barriers right now.
Let's do it. The first major recommendation from the ACL is to host a storytelling party using video chat technology.
A storytelling party? That sounds fun.
It is. The idea is to gather a few friends or family members online, pick a theme, and give everyone 5 minutes to share a story. It's incredibly beneficial for reducing isolation, especially if mobility issues or geographic distance make getting together in person difficult.
And if you are listening and you feel intimidated by the phrase video chat software, things like Zoom or FaceTime or Skype, don't overthink it.
Yeah, don't let the name scare you.
Forget the software aspect entirely. Just treat your computer screen or your iPad like a two-way window into your friend's living room.
That's a great way to think about it.
You don't need an advanced degree in IT to look through a window and have a conversation. You sit in front of it, you see them, they see you, and you talk just like you would if they were sitting across your kitchen table.
Exactly.
The only difference is the window allows you to see all the way to California or New York instantly.
It's all about the utility. Another major recommendation they make is to share your stories and photos online using a specific hashtag.
Ah, hashtags.
Yeah. For this month, they suggest using hashtag Older Americans Month and hashtag Champion Your Health.
Hashtags constantly trip people up because the symbol itself looks like a math equation.
It really does.
But a hashtag is just the pound sign on your keyboard followed by a word or phrase with no spaces. But what is the actual mechanism behind it? What does it do?
A lot of people wonder that.
Right. Well, imagine the entire internet as a massive, incredibly messy filing cabinet. Billions of photos and thoughts just tossed in randomly.
It definitely feels like that sometimes.
If you take a sticky label, right, champion your health in bright red ink, and slap it on a folder, you suddenly have a way to organize the chaos. A hashtag is literally just a digital sticky label.
That makes perfect sense.
When you type hashtag champion your health on a post, the computer's algorithm automatically files it in a virtual folder with every other photo in the world that uses that exact same label.
So it groups it all together.
Exactly. So if you click on that hashtag, you instantly see how thousands of other people across the country are celebrating. It connects your single voice to a massive national choir.
It's a brilliant indexing tool. They also suggest creating a virtual bulletin board for group projects or family sharing.
Which is exactly like the physical corkboard you might see at your local grocery store or library.
Right, the one with all the thumbtacks.
Yes. You know, the one where people use thumbtacks to pin up flyers, good news, or photos. A virtual bulletin board is the exact same concept, just existing on your screen.
It's so convenient.
It is. You and your family members can all log in from different states and pin digital photos, type out updates, or share old family recipes onto one shared private screen. It's a wonderful way to communicate asynchronously.
Meaning you don't all have to be online at the exact same time to share the experience.
Exactly.
And putting these tools into action is where you see the real-world benefits. You could jump into the selfie challenge they are running this month.
Oh, how does that work?
You take a piece of paper, write the phrase "aging unbound" means, and fill in the blank with your own philosophy. Then you take a photo of yourself holding that paper, post it online, and use that digital sticky label, #OlderAmericans Month.
That is fantastic. These tools are so great for celebration, but we have to look at the other side of the coin, too. These tools are incredibly powerful for logistics and support, specifically when it comes to caregivers. Family caregivers are truly the unsung, load-bearing pillars of the aging experience in this country.
They absolutely are. And the data here is staggering. There are currently 37.1 million family caregivers in the U.S. providing unpaid care.
37.1 million unpaid caregivers. That's a huge portion of the population.
It is. And here's a statistic that completely changes the narrative. 38% of those family caregivers are aged 65 and older themselves.
Wow. Let's really think about what that means. You have someone in their late 60s or maybe their mid-70s who is actively managing the physical, emotional, and logistical demands of caregiving for a spouse with dementia or perhaps a sibling or even an older parent.
It's incredibly demanding.
The physical toll is immense, but the sheer isolation can be devastating.
Which is exactly why mastering this technology is a lifeline, not just a luxury.
Completely agree.
If a 75-year-old caregiver cannot physically leave the house because their spouse requires 24/7 supervision, that two-way window of a video chat becomes their only way to attend a caregiver support group.
Wow, yes.
That virtual bulletin board becomes the only efficient way to coordinate meal drop-offs or medication schedules with out-of-state children.
It transforms the technology from a novelty into critical infrastructure. And speaking of critical infrastructure, if you are a caregiver or if you need care yourself, there is one specific resource you absolutely must know about.
Yes, the Elder Care Locator. It is a public service provided by the Administration for Community Living.
How do people find it?
You can search for it online or call their national toll-free number. What makes it so powerful is that it is the direct bridge to those local air traffic controllers we discussed earlier.
The AAAs.
Exactly. You punch in your zip code, and the Elder Care Locator instantly connects you with your specific local area agency on aging, pointing you directly to the support services, respite care, or transportation available in your exact neighborhood.
It is a phenomenal tool. So we've covered the macro level, the massive demographics, the federal funding of the OAA, and the digital tools you can use from your living room. Let's bring it all down to earth.
Yeah, let's make it local.
To see how this all connects in the real world, let's look at one specific localized example, Delaware County, Pennsylvania.
Delaware County is an excellent case study for how this invisible engine surfaces in a community. Nearly 1 in 4 residents in Delaware County is 60 years of age or older.
That's a significant portion of their county.
Very. Their local AAA operates under the name the County Office of Services for the Aging, or COSA, and they're putting the Champion Your Health theme into practice in a massive way this May.
What does that actually look like on the ground for the people living there?
Well, they have engineered a whole roster of events addressing different aspects of health. On May 1st, they kick things off with the Celebrate Age Senior Living Expo at Harrah's.
Oh, an expo. That sounds like a great hub.
It is. It's a massive resource fair that brings together dozens of vendors focusing on health screenings, wellness programs, housing options, and caregiver support all in one room.
That's perfect.
Then moving into June, they host the Delaware County Senior Games. This is 2 solid weeks of friendly athletic competition designed for all fitness levels, from track and field to bowling.
I absolutely love the senior games concept. It addresses the physical and the social determinants of health simultaneously.
Right, getting people moving and talking.
Exactly, championing your health through actual movement and community, rather than just reading a pamphlet about it.
Exactly. And perhaps the most poignant event they organize is their centenarian luncheon at Drexelbrook Catering.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
It really is. They host a specialized formal luncheon specifically to honor residents of the county who are turning 100 or older in 2026. It's a moment to highlight their resilience, share their stories, and visibly celebrate their presence in the community.
Okay, here is where this gets incredibly relevant for you listening right now. You do not have to live in Delaware County, Pennsylvania to experience this.
No, not at all.
Because of that invisible engine, the Older Americans Act, and those local air traffic controllers, the AAAs, every single state and county in the nation has some version of this ecosystem.
That is the beauty of it.
And now that you understand the technology a bit better, you can use those exact digital skills to tap into it. You can open your computer, search for your local area agency on aging, and find out exactly when your local senior games, resource expos, or video chat storytelling parties are happening.
It's all out there.
The network is already built and waiting for you.
That is the ultimate takeaway. It's about connecting the macro policy and the National Month of Recognition to your micro daily life.
Absolutely.
The resources are there, physically in your town, and the access points are digitally right there on your screen.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We spend so much time figuring out how to adapt older adults to modern technology. We teach you how to navigate the hashtags and the video windows.
Right, we're always teaching adaptation.
But if the projections are right, if this demographic hits 22% of the population and centenarians keep doubling, maybe we have the dynamic entirely backwards.
How do you mean?
Well, what if the next great technological revolution isn't a faster microchip or a new virtual reality headset? What if the next revolution is an architectural redesign of the internet itself, built from the ground up for a society where the average power user is 85 years old?
Oh, wow. I love that.
Imagine a digital world that doesn't ask you to adapt to it, but is intuitively designed to adapt to your wealth of lived experience. You have shaped every other era of American history. There is absolutely no reason you won't shape the digital one, too.
That is a fascinating perspective and, frankly, a necessary shift in how developers need to think about the future.
The future is yours to command. You are deeply capable, and we will be right here with you step by step. This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. It's available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. If you'd like to receive their free newsletters, you can subscribe at subscribe.theseniortechie.com.